Hello and welcome to the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 23rd. In this episode, Canadian CONCACAF chaos. That's a lot of C's. The Premier League is back. Ole is sacked. Felt like I'm rapping. We have new manager bounces everywhere. There were 2 3-3s. But first, Mike. I was excited, probably more than you were. Conte, fist bumps. And is this the best half that Spurs has played since Pochettino?
So the clickbait answer is yes. The actual answer, the not fun one, is
Mourinho.
The first few weeks of Mourinho, I was there, and it was fucking fabulous.
Also, the 6-3 was good. The 6-1, whatever it was good.
Well, yeah, but that was more about United playing like garbage, and then
you mean they've been terrible for a long time and no one noticed?
Yeah. No, and the thing that it reminded me of was the last season at White Hart Lane with that's the clickbait answer you're looking for, right? Like where like Kane is flying and the goals are going in left and right. And I mean, they only won 2-1, but they could have had 5, right? So was that 3 posts they hit in the second half?
Yeah, I just thought it was one of these things where the narrative was Spurs were playing how they had been. This kind of like, how do we play? What do we do? There's 3 at the back. Where's this guy supposed to be? Mora was doing his running. I thought Reguilon was good.
See, I thought he was really bad, but it was just a function that he was taking a lot of risks and sort of paying for a lot of them. But he ends up being in the right place at the right time and scores the winner. So
I thought it was nice to see Winks. I think Winks will be one of those players who can be coached and will take on what the coach says. So he'll play. So he'll be a Conte guy, and Conte will say, fucking Ndombele, you don't fucking listen. I'm going to go with this midget who doesn't do shit, but at least he does what I ask him to, and I'm going to ask him to pass forward, and he's going to pass forward. Anyway.
It's important. Well, let's stop there for a second. It's important to have Winks in the side and in the contention for places because what you need out of him is to build up his confidence back, right? Like he's shattered. Mason tried a little bit after Mourinho, but it just never worked under Nuno. And now you got a kid who's not a kid anymore, but like you've got a guy who's essentially just useless in his own body because he can't string a pass together. It's almost like he's got the yips. So what Conte is doing is 2 things. A, reacting to a alarming lack of depth in the midfield. B, he's saying, Ndombele, you're like I've been saying for years, fuck you, dude. You've got all the talent in the world and you got a 10-cent head. Like you don't care. So I'm not going to play you.
But what I liked was the return. The first half looked like Spurs. The second half looked like Conte was like, not fucking today. Yeah. Not today is this fucking happening. He he had the jacket. He didn't have the jacket on. He puts the jacket on. So jacket first step. He's ginning up the fucking crowd. He has had it. He either and should they have played that way in the first half? I thought it was a great juxtaposition against Ole, where Ole just never got anything out of United. And in this one instance, you see the difference between a coach and not a coach, right? When United would come back, it wasn't because Ole did anything. It was because the United players were like, oh, fuck, we got to come back. You never saw Ole get mad. You never saw him yell. You never saw him do anything. With Conte, he's got fucking an extra 0.5% out of White Hart Lane. He literally pushed them on, and it worked. So I saw
the 2 times it's worked this year.
Harry Kane.
The 2 times it's worked this year was the first game against City, where it wasn't anything to do with Nuno. It was coincidentally his first game, but it was the Tottenham versus the world mentality, especially with City coming in, the whole Kane narrative, all that. Yeah. But this was sort of we need our club back, right? I mean, it wasn't the first game with Conte, but it was the first winnable game, which all narrative aside for a second, Leeds in the second half. We're going to get into best bets a little bit later on, I guess, or maybe on Thursday or whatever. Bet against Leeds in the second half. Holy shit. Not only do they play an aggressive style, so that leaves them open at the back, they have the most goals against in the second half against of any team in the Premier League. And they're just bad on defense, right? And Spurs, we've talked about Spurs being just stuck in neutral for months now. Basically going well back into last season. And this is the team that shredded you. Now, granted, they do have all the talent in the world with Sonny and Kane and others, but really? So Leeds, there's a thing where it's like the doctor will see you now that like Tottenham, if your team is ailing, go see Dr. Tottenham and you'll take care of him. It's almost like it's Dr. Leeds, right? So so if you see a team sputtering, maybe go after him.
But it was good. I mean, it was up and down. I thought Leeds played their part. I mean, Leeds always are entertaining even if they lose. But I do want to keep the United juxtapositions. Are one of the things I kept thinking about was like the win that Ole got versus Spurs is now like, how the fuck did you lose to United?
Well, we talk about it as Cristiano Ronaldo, Tottenham legend, right? Because what ended up happening is, we had that episode where we said the sword of Damocles and one of these men will fall, and it ended up being Nuno, right?
And that actually saved Spurs' ass. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Here's the thing. Now you can think about it. Thank God Nuno played that badly because you wouldn't have Conte.
Exactly. Conte would be.
And now you do. Right. And thank God. And what I don't understand is one of these things that drives me nuts is this. I get the DNA thing, like, oh, Conte is not a United guy and this guy is. And I find that to be complete and utter total bullshit. I think the coach has to come in and stamp his identity within the context. It's really just performance, right? Like, could Mourinho have been the United manager? Yes, if he spoke the right way, not saying I want to blow it all up or I want to burn it all down, or Van Gaal being it's whether you're iconoclastic and want to be bigger than a club. I don't get the sense that Conte wants to be bigger than clubs. He just wants them to spend, and he's gone to places that don't spend, right? Like, or maybe I don't know Conte well enough.
No, I mean, look, the rap that I got on him from when he was leaving Chelsea is that like he kept complaining about more money, and it was like, hey man, that's not really what they do there. They give you what you need, right? And so that was what sort of turned me off to Conte at the end, aside from the fact that he won there, and I hated Chelsea. Not past tense, hate Chelsea. But
in the second season, they did win the FA Cup, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I always think of that season as a failure.
Well, it was the league and then the FA Cup the next year, right?
Yeah. So but I think, I think the United thing looming and then Conte and seeing it happen and seeing what happened with United. And I mean, I don't know how in depth he went against watching Watford, but Watford beat the shit out of United. It was a down tools performance. It was a holy shit. This is really, really bad. Like no reaction, not in the second half, nothing. And that was it. It was over. We finally have the sword drop. And again, United bungles this by waiting. And it doesn't seem that they have any plan.
The weird thing is that it's almost like that interview that came out too. It was very strange because
I've never seen that. That's pathetic.
Me neither. But it also felt like they did it before the game, didn't they?
Yeah. But let's take a step back. So Ole, they have the performance. They come out from the break. United are terrible. There's just nothing there. I do want to give a shout out to Tanganga. I was happy to see him. Anyway, he was still good. He almost got sent off, but he was fine. Maguire was terrible again. 7 minutes, second half, 2 yellows, boom, boom, gone. The front three at Watford of Sarr, Dennis, and Josh King, really, really good. They made him look like Mane, Salah, and Firmino. It was like, what the fuck? What is United doing? Anyway, we know he's bad. So they fire Ole, but they keep all his coaches who are equally as bad. So that's weird. So it's Carrick, Phelan, and this.
And by the way, let's stop there because this is how they got into this situation in the first place. When they got rid of, it was Mourinho, right?
Yeah.
So they got rid of Mourinho. They bring in Ole as an interim manager. He's a guy who's got the juice. He's got the United background and history. And then Rashford puts the team on his back against, I think, PSG, right? In the Champions League.
There was a handball that should have never been called.
Right. And so there was like 2 or 3 wild results early on, and everybody's singing Ole at the wheel. And now you've signed yourself up for what ended up being, 3 years of just just complete, utter uselessness and so mediocrity. And now you're bringing in Michael Carrick, who sounds a whole lot like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in that same interim role. And what happens if they go on a run right now? Hell, I'm rooting for it now because I want to see them do this shit again, right? The idea is that he's going to have it. He's going to have it until the season ends, right? But that's exactly what they said with Ole. They're going to get drunk on short-term success if it comes because they did it once. They're going to do it again. And the real reason why I want that is because I really don't want Pochettino in United.
I think United will bungle it. It seems to me that there's a deep structural damage in the team. It starts at the top. The ultimate decision makers are the Glazers. It doesn't seem to me that there's a hierarchy of a football person there at all. I think, again, we'll probably we're going to touch on Arsenal. I think one of the things that's interesting when you juxtapose it with Arsenal is Arsenal went through the same structure with 3 or 4 different attempts at football structure, but they did eventually hit on it with Edu and Arteta and a couple other guys. They tried with Mislan, but at least they tried to modernize after Wenger. I think with SAF leaving, after Ferguson left, he literally ran the whole team in his head. He was all the roles.
Like Moyes came in like, did you write anything down? Like, no, I didn't write anything down. It's just all up here. I'll tell you over lunch.
No. Now, to be fair, I think Moyes did that at Everton. He really was running it the way that Ferguson ran it.
Yeah.
But I think at United it's a little bit different. So we have that. I mean, and I think it's really hard. I think you have a multi-billion-dollar business, publicly listed on the stock exchange, American owners who think they can run it like it's an NFL team, where you have time and you can just kind of like take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and kind of go 5 years sucking and then go, oh, look, it's Tom Brady. Oh, awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of go, oh yeah, that'll work. It's that fourth estate that we talk about, right? In the NFL, it's owners, players. That's it. And television. The idea of fans having that cudgel to bait you over the head with is just, Americans just don't get it. We're just like, what do you mean we have to win? What do you mean? We hit the revenue number. What's the problem?
Yeah.
Because you didn't do it right. You have to, this other estate is here that you have to please. And they kept Ole for that estate. And now they're going to have to try and navigate some method of, they're still playing like PR management with how they pick a manager. It's kind of a disaster.
Well, that's what I mean. I think that I'm rooting for. I think even you as a City fan, can't you find it in your cold black heart to root for a little bit of short-term success so that it ultimately torpedoes the next 2 years for United?
Here's what I know. Teams that are well run beat teams that are not, right? Sure. And United are not well run no matter what they do. Whether they get Pochettino, whether they get fucking Bill Shankly, they're not going to be good. Or Bill Nicholson. It doesn't matter who they have. They will fail. They're just, I think, unless they just spend over the top and go crazy.
Well, sure. I don't necessarily agree because despite the fact that they're dysfunctional, despite the fact that they don't play together, and by the way, Bruno is sort of being found out this year, I do think they're still just a Declan Rice away from being the best team in the country. So I think they're one good position player away. And a good coach, obviously.
Sure. Well, I mean,
so if you bring in Ten Hag, if you bring in Pochettino, if you bring in Zidane, who I know doesn't want the job, but like if you bring in one of those players, he's going to look at he's going to look at the team and go, yeah, there's a huge fucking hole right in the number 6, giant gaping hole. How about we go get Declan Rice? How about we go get somebody else, right? Like if they go in and they say, oh, I have effectively unlimited funds as Manchester United's coach, I don't need him. I just need one really good player. $65, $70 million. Done. They're going to be in the title race next year.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, I had said it a million times. I was like, this is the best team in the country, and they're terrible because they're not coached at all, right? There'll be so much they'll be so happy once they have a coach. They're like, oh my god, look what's happening. I do want to talk about teams that do have good coaching. I do. There was thing. We had Liverpool versus Arsenal, and I think we thought that Arteta might be a good coach, and this was one of those litmus test games for Arsenal, and they failed, but not too badly. It wasn't they need to go back to the zero. They had a way they wanted to play. They did try and play it. They showed some resiliency. They had Ramsdale make a bunch of saves. And then Arteta and Klopp got into a pretty high quality on the touchline spat where they're yelling at each other. Arteta literally jumped in the air and was pushed back. So it was a quality one.
Yeah.
But it was at Anfield, and that ginned up the crowd, which ginned up Liverpool. And then from the half-hour mark to the end of the game, Arsenal felt the full wrath of Liverpool at home, angry.
Yep.
And they got the doors blown off them.
Yeah. I have, if you listen to the show, I have been banging on Arsenal and saying, fade them, fade them, fade them. They're pretenders. They're not that good. This was the game to make all of my money back. I didn't bet it because I moved this weekend and had completely forgotten until after kickoff, which I was very upset about. But let me hit
but you wouldn't have said 4.
I would have said, if it was 1.5, I would have said smash Liverpool. But let me take my foot off the hate Arsenal gas for a second. I don't think they're certainly not as bad as a 4-0 scoreline looks.
No,
especially like you said at Anfield, where Arsenal will be defined like many teams in this middling part of the table
against Wolves.
But that's December 28th. It's the holiday festive period, Jesus Christ, that starts realistically on Saturday. You're going to have games pretty much every 3 days in the league. This is where Arsenal have had an advantage in the last 6 weeks because they haven't had any European titles or any European games.
Or titles for that matter.
Or titles. Thank you. And so that's going to be a real test for them, obviously, like it is with everybody else, but now they're on even footing. So Newcastle at home, you have to win that game. You go to Old Trafford. Who knows what they're going to look like in 10 days' time. And then Everton is a game that you need to win as well, but that's away. That's back up in Liverpool.
Those are tough games. They're tough games. Yeah, I just thought watching Arsenal, it didn't feel the same manner of this is pathetic. This was just Liverpool at 12, and as a City fan, I know what Liverpool at 12 is like.
Yeah,
and it's just those moments when Liverpool is at their best, they're the best team in the world, and it's not close. Like those, you're just like, well, why? I don't know what to do. They completely suffocate you. Now, granted, some of these were self-inflicted. Like I think Tavares made a couple of bad passes. Some of them were just really bad, but they're clinical. Trent Alexander-Arnold making passes. They just like you're just like we're fucked.
Yeah, just cover the face, take body shots, and fall.
Yeah, you're just like, okay, we made 3 mistakes and they scored goals on all 3. And granted, I didn't see any Smith Rowe. I didn't really feel like Arsenal had any chances, but they did suffer together. And I thought that was actually good versus some of the previous Arsenal things where they just get battered and it's like, hang your head. This was like,
and there's finger pointing a lot of that.
Right. So they were okay. And I think they just have to go. We're not ready. We're not here yet. And
no. And like you said, there are 3 teams in the league that are, and we've said that a lot on the show. It's Chelsea, it's City, it's Liverpool, in whatever order you want. But those are the 3, and then there's the rest. And realistically,
and the rest are really close together. Like,
they are. Yeah,
it's a long list of rest.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I would not put United in the rest right now. Now, one game later, they probably would be back in it. But the thing I love about West Ham is that they want to be Tottenham so bad that they even mimicked the very, very brief glimmer of hope near the top of the table. So they struggle against Wolves, who are finally getting the bounces that we expected them to get early on. and they go into the Molineux, which is always a tough game to play, and they lose one late to Wolves, and it's something that's been coming. So I'm not really surprised at all. But
Yeah. And I got respect. I got a shout out from our friend Kartik Krishnaiyer, who just was like, "Oh, this guy." Laurent said that Wolves are good. I'm like, it's just XG against versus. You can see it. It's just you can
yeah,
see it when they play. You could see the Traore kind of not finishing things. You could see they had a better way to play because that team was always good.
yeah,
And I think that they were getting better the whole time. But yeah, I mean, West Ham's not there yet. They don't have the consistency. You would expect that they would have had a better result, but I think that injuries are. Igbana makes a difference. I mean, they lose 1-0. They didn't score anything, but I mean, Mikel Antonio was flying on private jets to play for Jamaica. He scored his first goal. So I
yeah.
mean, these are guys. They're not. I just flew from fucking Sweden, and I'm like 3 days in, and I don't know what planet I'm on. So I can't imagine where these guys are. But and then to round out our big three,
Hold on, wait.
we
One
talked
more point on
Liverpool,
Wolves.
Chelsea.
One more
Yeah,
point on
yeah,
Wolves is
yeah.
who's your manager of the season so far? If you had to pick one right now, and why is it Bruno Lage?
The manager of the season is more. It depends. I think narrative will drive this a lot. I think if Conte can pull Spurs into like a winning run down the stretch,
Sure.
he would be the obvious
No, I
answer.
know, but 12 games in.
Um, it would be. It's almost Moyes again.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's for me looking at the table, it's Moyes, Bruno Lage, um, and um, Vieira at Palace. Those are the three for me.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but
Vieira's.
so
I mean, Palace are just like, but Palace is just like,
the thing that
and,
everybody has to
well, the
really
player
have
of
the
the season
context
is
is that
Gallagher, and
yeah. Well, sure. But the thing you have to remember about Crystal Palace is that they didn't have first team players on like July 31st, right? They had like three first team players. They lost like 10 guys to free agents, end of running down their contract. They didn't have like I can't stress this enough. They didn't know who was going to be playing for them. And so
I
they
think
pieced it together. They got Gallagher on loan, which was a huge get, but a number of players came in. So, if there was a GM of the year, it's most definitely Palace, and I don't think it's close.
no,
But having Vieira bring all those pieces together more or less and hit the ground running was
I
incredibly
think
impressive so
I
far.
think this was something. So we'll take a digression before we talk Chelsea. This was something that Palace had been wanting to do with under Steve Parish, who's the
The chairman?
chairman. They had taken the investment money. They had wanted to play. They had that window under Frank de Boer. He loses. He goes 0-8.
Yeah. I was excited for
It,
De Boer, and that didn't
it
go
doesn't.
well at all.
It doesn't work. Then you bring in Hodgson. He stabilizes them, keeps them in the league. Everybody likes him. They keep playing under him, and I think that they sort of targeted this season of just like, hey, let's let this group run down. Let's let Roy finish it out. We're still in the league, and I think they targeted this whole thing. I think they knew they wanted to go attacking. I think they knew that they wanted to play and have a team that reflected the neighborhood in a weird way because like all those South London kids, Zaha and Eze and all those kids with the flair, they wanted the team to reflect the neighborhood, and I think that matters. I think there's a weird connection there, and I think Vieira, as much as he's an Arsenal guy, he sort of reflects that as well as the immigrant community, and I think it made sense, and I think they had the right target. They basically have taken find the most exciting player in the championship, buy him a year before anyone notices, and then
Yeah.
have him on your team,
Yeah.
right? So as a like find that Zaha replacement, take 2 or 3 swings at it. It's almost like taking that. It's like tanking in the NBA, except you do it differently. You
Yeah,
don't
right.
tank. You simply get those number one drafts picks and start putting them in your pocket. Speaking
Yeah.
of which, I saw Ryan Sessegnon play again.
Oh, you
Yes,
did?
he played
Wow.
yesterday. He played at Spurs. He
Yeah.
brought him on.
Yeah.
Everyone has a chance under Conte. So that's cool. The less spoken about Chelsea, the better. The thing I noted was they just killed Leicester. It wasn't close.
Yeah.
And Leicester are still sputtering. They're in that group. The ball moved fast. It was like boom, 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 boom. That was really shocking. And then Rudiger, they had a cool set piece goal. Pulisic. And then they scored, I think, 3 late offside call goals, which was before the 3. So there were at least 4 or 5 extra goals. Leicester's in trouble. I think as someone who's gone through this, when your manager gets their head turned,
I was gonna say he's checked out.
Your team can suffer. The player, I think we're talking about these. They talk about fine margins all the time. If you're not committed, you're in trouble.
No, the margin gets wider, and if I feel like for a guy like Vardy, who you can tell he's like Jake Taylor in Major League, right? He's just like,
yeah,
he's trying to get everybody galvanized again. But when he sees Brendan Rodgers start to waver and waffle a little bit,
yeah, but even if
he
it's
goes,
not
wow,
it's not
whatever.
Right, but even if it's not mean or nasty, it just is, right? It's the business, right?
No,
How do
and
you
it's
keep
it's
the
not
team?
nasty. It's organic.
Yeah,
It's just it's human nature. You go, oh, you instead of you said it about Kane. The difference between Harry Kane in the first half and Harry Kane in the second half was not anything that you could see on the score sheet, but it felt different. And you can say that about Leicester between call it the last few years and more or less most of this season. And it's very interesting to me that Brendan Rodgers is still being considered one of the top candidates for a lot of these jobs, because if you're United and you can't miss this hire, right?
You cannot hire Brendan Rodgers.
You can't. Listen, if it were last year, if Leicester were, and by the way, they're only 5 points adrift of 5th place right now, so fine, but they just look like hot garbage. So is that if you're so concerned, overly concerned, as you said, about PR and image and how these things look, if you were to say that Brendan Rodgers is going to leave Leicester in the middle of the season and then come to United, if you're a United supporter, and actually you have a friend of mine who I was talking to today who wants Brendan Rodgers, I don't understand.
If you're gonna hire Rodgers, hire Potter.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's this. I don't think that there's a significant difference, and there's no baggage, right? Mm-hmm. I think Brendan Rodgers is Potter with a better PR firm, right? Like, I think they're as good coaches. I think they bring out the most from their players. I do think that Potter is at that level. It just hasn't happened yet because he hasn't had the team yet.
No,
right?
Well, Potter doesn't have, like you said, I suppose the PR, but he didn't have the backing of a very memorable season at Liverpool, and then a few, basically punching above their weight seasons at Leicester. And let's be very clear: every season that Leicester is in the top 5, I don't care, championship be damned, they're punching well above their weight.
Every season, Brighton stays in the Premier League; they're above their weight.
I understand, but that's not as sexy.
No. I understand that. We're saying the same thing, but I'm just saying, like, if you're United, you put the PR machine on to hire Potter, because that's actually who you want. You want someone young who can grow with the team. Now, is he ready for that level? Probably not. But
what if? Well, here's a question. What we just talked about De Boer and Palace, right? Which, by the way, I thought was a great hire at the time. I love the kind of football he plays, and he's probably never going to touch the Premier League again.
He's never going to touch any team again. After that hire, he's flamed out at every single team he's been at, even Atlanta.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. If you bring on Potter, a guy who, quote unquote, has never done it at the big stages before, and I don't believe in that, and I know you don't either, but
I think there's something.
What's the leash like? If it gets to a really bad start, let's say, which I don't think it would, but how much more quickly would the knives come out? Not just for Potter, but for the Woodwards, and I know he's leaving, but the Woodwards.
I think the issue that Potter would have, and this is where the difference between the big clubs and something like a Brighton job is he can't walk into the room the way that Steven Gerrard just did and just be like, "You've seen me on TV. You've seen me lift the fucking Champions League trophy. This is what I want you to do." Right? He can never do that. And that's what Brendan Rodgers is always going to have a problem with. Now, Tuchel had no problem doing it, but he grinded. He grinded his way through Mainz. He grinded his way through Borussia Dortmund playing some of the best football they've ever seen. So he has that level of like, I've put the years under my belt. I've done, Pokel. Potter doesn't have that. And I think that's always going to be the issue. And I think it's that gravitas piece. Like when you're an all-time great player, and again, this is where Ole had it, and that's kind of what kept him in the job. But Gerrard coming in at Villa, we have two managers that came in.
Can I
he just
ask you a question?
He just goes in and I got this.
Is Ole the player comparable to Steven Gerrard the player? Or is Ole the player? You've said this on the show before, and I think it's a perfect analogy. Is he Aaron Boone the player?
He's Aaron Boone.
Right. Yeah. So
actually, to be fair, he 10 years at United,
but he's he's closer to Boone than he is to Gerrard, right? Like
Gerrard is Derek Jeter.
Yes. I actually made that comparison. I made that comparison before as well. But
except as a loser. Well, sort of a loser.
Sort of. But for one thing. But yeah, I mean, Ole is known for one thing. It's incredibly, dramatic and great and all that stuff. But it's not as if he was the bus driver for a decade, right? He was a supporting actor who had a really, really great line in an awesome comedy movie. That's what he was, right? He was. He was like Kevin James in one of the decent-ish Adam Sandler movies.
Basically, what he was a club legend who greets you when you go to the boxes.
Yes.
Who ended up getting the job? My analogy was this. The way I thought about it was, it would be as though they did a Who Wants to Be the Man United manager, collected all the All-Timers Day guys show up, and they did a show, and he won. Like, he beat out Steve Bruce for the keys to Man United. He's like, and Ole, you are now the Manchester United manager. And he's like, yeah,
you are the father.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically what it is. It was like a reality show guy who gets to be the head of the job. Yeah. But the contestants were all former United players. Gary Neville drops out immediately because everyone hates him. And he's like, oh, at this moment in time, I'm leaving the show. So fuck him. But yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking. It's one of these things where I'm not sure what they do. But I do want to sort of go to the last of my big threes is our things is just another City performance against Everton. This game will be remembered as the game where João Cancelo made the greatest pass anyone has ever seen in the history of the world. Yeah. Right-footed onto Raheem Sterling's foot. No problem. Goals. Right. And we're there. Where do you want to go next, Mike?
Yeah, no, I actually want to switch gears. I want to talk about that Canadian CONCACAF chaos we talked about in the Open, because when we left you last Tuesday was just after the U.S. had absolutely trounced Mexico. And I had some words of caution, because at that point we were only halfway through the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. The U.S. was top of the table. Everything was looking good, but there was danger afoot, especially for a team that was on sort of shaky footing like the U.S. men's national team was. What we learned was that 2-3 days later, the U.S. dropped points against Jamaica. You already mentioned Mikel Antonio, that son of a bitch. The U.S. drops points. They are no longer top of the table because the Canadian national team played with General Winter on their side in the most frozen game that Mexico's ever played in. 2-0, almost another 2-0, with a late Mexico goal to make it 2-1. And now Canada, the Canadian national team, is top of CONCACAF with games in January coming up where it's going to be even colder. So I got to say, it's going to be difficult to knock them certainly all the way down to even the 4th spot, where you're not going to have you're going to have to be on that playoff. So right now, Canada's 1, US 2, Mexico 3, and I believe it's Panama 4. I'm not looking at the table right now, but yeah, I don't know where it goes from here.
The nickname is Azteca.
Azteca, nice. I love it.
So I do want to give us some credit. I mean, we both were like, why not Canada?
Yeah.
Like, they have the best player. They now have Jonathan David, who's leading Ligue 1 in scoring, from already led a team to win the league in Ligue 1. Where's he going to go next? Is he the next striker to make the jump to the champion to the Premier League? Because as we said before, narrative dictates you're not a real player until you're in the Premier League, which is bigger than the Champions League, which is coming back, and we don't even care because these games don't matter. Maybe for a couple teams. And so, I think the Alphonso Davies thing, David, a team that plays as a unit. We've seen it with Wales. We've seen a good coach galvanizing a country to pull around them. There's no reason why not Canada. They're early. They're looking at 26. They don't care about 22, and they're going to make it. So that's fun.
Not only are they going to make it. So, all right, going back to the table, I do have it up now. U.S. on 16, Canada on 16, U.S. on 15, Mexico and Panama tied on 14. Now, Mexico's got the difference in the tiebreaker and goal difference, but what we're talking about is a disaster scenario where Mexico could be playing for their lives to get into the World Cup, which has happened, I think, in both of not the 2018, but certainly the 2014 World Cup. Let me ask you this. How hot is Tata Martino's seat right now?
Hot.
Yeah. Because this doesn't happen to Mexico, quote unquote, right? They are very much in the Chelsea realm of things where they react and overreact, and not even Chelsea, more Watford than Chelsea, right? They change their manager more than they change their underwear down there.
He should be getting close to fired. It's actually that bad.
I want to see who they're playing in January.
They may have to appoint Dean Smith for Mexico.
Okay, so they have 2 soft games in January coming up, but they're shoehorning him again. Jamaica, Costa Rica, and then a massive game at home, I believe, against Panama on February 2nd. So we'll see what that looks like then. And then conversely, Panama in that next stretch, because this is going to go a long way, right? Like, so actually they have the opposite. They have Costa Rica, then Jamaica, and then Mexico. So if you can envision both of these teams get 6 out of 6 from those first 2 games, that is an absolutely massive showdown on February 2nd. So you could be looking at, the biggest game in CONCACAF. And ironically, I'm completely neglecting the fact that the U.S. is going to play Canada 3 days earlier, right? That's for the top of the table. But realistically, I think it's strange that there doesn't matter as much for the pots and the groups and all that stuff. If you're in, right? So I don't think it matters. It's just a matter of how quickly you get in. The real thing is it's like the promotion playoff being bigger than who won the championship, right? Like that's kind of how I think of it in my head. Yeah. So
the weird Canada, thing is we're literally 1 year out from the World Cup.
Yeah, I know. And I'm starting to get excited about it. That game against Mexico really jazzed me up. We're going to have the Winter Olympics in February, which I'm really excited about. I'm talking about that USA Canada. In fact, we might have USA Canada in soccer and then in hockey, like 3 or 4 days back to each other. So our shows that week, I'm going to be really like full on. I'm going to face paint. I'm going to be talking some shit about maple syrup. It's going to get wild in here. So yeah,
Mike,
I mean,
we had 2 3-3s.
Yeah. Let's get into that.
2 3-3s for teams that shouldn't have 3-3s. Burnley and Crystal Palace. Actually, I'll put these 2 together because it's all the greatest hits. It's Burnley, Crystal Palace, and then it's Brentford and Newcastle. The results don't matter. I don't really care. All that matters is Gallagher was incredible. St. Maximin scored 2 goals, was incredible. Ivan Toney scored 2 goals, was incredible. Yeah. And then Burnley was my guy Cornet, just like being the black stallion who in this field of old beat up junky white English players annihilating
they're not even like white horses, they're cows. Right? He's like the herding dog. Right, and a bunch of sheep.
It's like a bunch of soot-faced fucking coal miners, and there's this beautiful
exactly what Burnley is. How have we not made a coal miner joke about Burnley
and
yet?
then there's this
140 million episodes. God damn it.
There's this beautiful French African who just comes in and just gives them something completely new, completely beautiful, and scores goals that no one on their team would ever score ever in a million years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Gallagher set up Benteke twice, and Benteke missed one. Gallagher is by far my favorite player. I can't even deal with him. He's just a shit Jack Grealish, but Jack Grealish is shit, so maybe he's actually the new Jack Grealish.
The only thing I don't love about it is that at the end of the year he's got to go back to fucking Chelsea. So I'm already dreading.
Maybe, but he won't play at Chelsea.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. By the way, another weird story to follow is Newcastle is bottom of the table. Norwich 2 wins in a row. Farke's win, and then Dean Smith got a win against Southampton.
Yep.
By the way, Hassan Hudl for United. I'm just putting it in the air.
No, it wouldn't. It would be bad. We fell in love with him, and we were sold snake oil. I like him still, and I want to root for him. I want them to stay up. That would be a disaster. You know what? Actually, now I like it.
Because he would cry when he beat Liverpool?
Yeah, no, he would cry when he got his shit kicked in by Liverpool.
Did you see he's wearing the 3-piece suit, by the way. It looks very cool.
Oh, I didn't see that.
On a giant man. He's wearing he's tracksuit out, 3-piece in.
Is he he's triple-breasted?
Yeah. He's looking good.
Ooh, okay.
But losing to Norwich is
I love a good triple breast.
So we now have Newcastle bottom of the table with the Saudis in place. Eddie Howe in his hotel room because he got COVID before the game. So he's got 2 weeks sitting in his hotel room. They did come out and attack. I just want to see Maxim just go nuts and not defend. I don't care what the hell he does. As long as he does insane things like spin around. I want him to do a spinorama goal. That's my goal for him is to do a spinorama. Because spinoramas are cool in every sport, especially in hockey.
Oh, especially in hockey. Let's come up with another reason to root against Newcastle. If they go down, they will sell St. Maximin.
No, they won't.
You don't think they will? You don't think he'll stay there for a year?
No, they won't have to sell him. He'll want to leave.
Yes. Okay, that's correct. Yep, you're right. Mm-hmm. And there's a chance then he goes to, there's a chance he goes to Brighton.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. You would light all of your Manchester City stuff on fire live on the show.
God.
And denounce them forever and become a bright. You would like, it'd be like a gender reveal. You would just like unzip your jacket and it'd be a big Brighton shirt.
I think the problem I'm having right now is there's too many good fun teams. Like the shit part of the league, outside of the big three, which we kind of tried to touch on, and be like, there's these 3 teams, they're going to win the league. Then 5 through whatever
12,
they're all really good and really likable, and it's sad that 3 teams have to go down. Like even Burnley, you just like, is Deitch gonna really go down, or like?
Okay, wait, time out.
Is it really going to be Leeds? Is it going to be Norwich?
Time out.
Sure?
Burnley is likable for Burnley because they have one good player, and we all have Stockholm syndrome based on what they usually look like, and then we go, okay, well, I mean that guy's great, right? It's almost as if a rose by another name, right? Like I don't subscribe to that. They are more fun than past iterations of Burnley, but they can still get fucked back to the championship. Get the hell out of here. I'm done with Burnley. I'm not letting you win me over.
If I go by my XG per 90, worst teams are Norwich, Newcastle, Watford,
and Tottenham.
Okay, but Watford have these. No, not anymore. Tottenham are moved up the list. They're now
good.
Right in the middle of the table, right exactly where you'd expect it to be.
Yep.
Arsenal are actually Liverpool are the best, and City. The 3 that we expect are there, and then strangely, Crystal Palace is in the top 5 for that.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'll keep my eye on that. So Norwich we think would go down. That wouldn't be a surprise. Newcastle going down, they have to make it in January, but they need to be in striking distance. And then Watford.
No, I don't think they do. To stay up, no, they don't. they need to be within, and this is a big number, but I would say if they are right now, they're 5. If they're within 10 points of 17th place, they can pull out of that. Anything more is going to be tough. But
10?
10
is
points.
a lot.
Yeah, it is. But think about it in the context of, man, it's if let's say if Liverpool's chasing Chelsea and on January 1st they're 10 points behind, you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of points. It is because Chelsea is not going to drop 10 points, not because Liverpool have to make up 10 plus from wherever they are. If Newcastle has to make up 10 plus points on Leeds or on Watford, that is not the same as making up 10 points on the title challenger. So I do think the line is probably 10, maybe even a little bit more, but not a lot. But yeah, and especially with the context of you're fighting for your fucking life, every point matters relative to we're 10 points behind. We're chasing this unwinnable war essentially with Chelsea or City or whoever it is at the top of the table at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the group here, right? Like Norwich is a go down candidate. Watford, Arsenal is down here, but there's no way Arsenal's going down. Burnley's there, Villa's there, Leeds are there. I don't think Villa's going down. Speaking of when Gerrard had his first game, he showed the passion almost the same way that Conte does, that kind of like jump and punch what you want. Like Pep does it in a neurotic way. Tuchel does it in a neurotic way.
I just worry that it's going to seem phony with Gerrard.
It's not.
I'm not. Wait till things go a little bit sideways. Not a lot. 2 losses on the bounce.
I really like him. I watched him.
I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just weary of them buying his all the way through.
I watched all his stuff with Rangers, and he's got the right manner. Like he comes with the suit and the tie and the jacket. He's not fly by night. Like he's taking the intensity that he took as a player to be the best player he could be, and he's taking that intensity to be the best manager he can be. Right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not, and he's not egomaniacal. That he got guys that are real managers who really know what they're doing, and to this point of like, oh wow, that shows maturity. Right? Like, oh, he's not afraid. He's got big personalities on his staff that actually do stuff. So
and again, think about all of the things, the same way, the mindset I just cited about the 10-point gap. Think about the teams you have to beat just to stay up, which realistically is Villa's goal this season. I know Gerrard's going to have higher ambitions to get them to mid-table, which you could argue is just as likely as them staying up. But they have to be worse than Watford, Leeds, and Burnley. Basically, all 3 of them. They're not going to do that. They'll be fine.
Yeah, I am starting to get worried for Brentford.
I don't want to be, but I am too. But again, they're a team that attacks. They're a team that goes to play for wins and not draws. So if they lose the next 3 and they win 2, they'll be fine.
They need to get the keeper thing right.
I know.
that keeper thing is worrying me. Anything else? We've got Champions League. City play PSG. Pochettino in Manchester.
Scary. I'm not liking it.
Chelsea play Juve. This is a weak Juve. They should have no problem with Juve because they're so good. They don't give up any goals.
Well, Juve is one of the only teams that's beaten them this year. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
And City,
and that's actually a game for the top of the group, isn't it?
The Villarreal United game. I don't think anyone expects anything from United, but Villarreal are not really playing well in Spain, so
hold on.
It shouldn't be close. It shouldn't be close at all. But
neither should the young boys game, right? But like we're going to learn a little bit about Carrick because it's not a regime change. He's been there the whole time with Ole. So I don't know, but I want to dial it back to Juve and Chelsea for a second. I'm looking at the table right now. Juve's 4-0, Chelsea's 3-1. The goal difference is +2 for Juve. A 1-0 win for Chelsea puts them even. And I don't know what the second tiebreaker would be. Then goals 4, so I think Juve would still have it. But
it's head-to-head first.
Yeah, but Juve, they'd be even if it's aggregate, right? They won 1-0. So anything.
Okay.
There are some permutations of this where Chelsea go ahead on goal difference, but the point is that going into the last match day of the group, you would have Juve and Chelsea both on 12 points, both on what would probably be a 6-goal difference. So there's a lot of different avenues for Chelsea to kind of stamp their mark on and get that first place in the group, which obviously is important because you don't want to be stuck with a stud team in the round of 16. So, but they will get through with a win or any kind of result, it seems. So
this United game is massive.
Yeah,
I mean, like gigantic for them, because then they'll really freak out if they. Well, I mean, Juve and Chelsea are through, right? It's just who wins the group. The only ones that are up for grabs is a shit group with Red Bull Salzburg, United, Villarreal, Atalanta. They're all fighting. Bayern, Barcelona with Javi. That doesn't matter. The Inter Real Madrid one is still up for grabs, but Sheriff is not fucking whatever.
No.
Ajax are the best team in the world that no one talks about. And then City, PSG, they're both through, but it depends on
Well, we talked about this during the last Champions League midweek game, whatever the fuck, match day. Atalanta has just as much of a chance to win that group as United and Villarreal do. So I'm very excited to see. They should take care of business against Young Boys tomorrow or whenever the hell they play this week. And I think that it's all contingent. If you remember, it was like a month ago and I was sort of getting galaxy brain. I'm like, well, if this team beats this team by this many goals. But you're going to have Atalanta on 8. So that means in all likelihood, you're either going to have them tied with both clubs on 8, or they're going to be in second place. So very, very interesting stuff. And then I think they play Villarreal. They play Villarreal and United in their last 2 games in the group. So a lot of fun for Group F. I think that's one to watch closely. I don't really know that there's that much else here. Like you said, we ran through it, but City PSG is the headliner, but I kind of don't care. I don't know why.
It's weird. I don't either. I'm just happy the league's back. Happy we had good games. Happy to see Gerrard win. Happy to have Dean Smith pulling things out. Those were good dudes. Still fascinated by what happens with United and who the coach is going to be. It's a complete catastrophe. And then Conte and what he does with Spurs second half. Could they? Let's say what happens to them if they are, if the season started today, if they were top 4 the rest of the way? I think they could be.
They could absolutely be top 4 the rest of the way. I think they'll struggle at the back. You can't have Ben Davies starting in a back 3. I mean, he's a good left center back in that, but like,
I think he's okay there. I think as a wing back and as a fullback.
And Romero's hurt again because of fucking international duty. And every time Tottenham get a little bit of momentum, they Plaxico Burress themselves, and it's just back to square one, right? So
you know what? It's gonna be can Conte teach Sanchez how to play football?
And Joe Rodon, I don't know where the fuck he's been, but like he'll probably play this week on Thursday. And I think that in so much as everybody's got a chance under Conte, you can only play 11 players. So the more games you get under him, the more training sessions you get under him, the more chance of making an impression. So I think Rodon's hungry. I think he wants some of these minutes. You're not going to be able to play Dyer, Sanchez, Davies the whole time. You're going, if Romero is in fact out an extended period of time, which seems to be the report, Joe Rodon's going to play a big part in the next 6 weeks. So I'm hoping that he gets his shot.
All right. I'm ready.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right. That was the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike Salerno and Laurent Cortines. We are the football wing of the Chop Sports Network. We record on Tuesdays and Fridays, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple, please rate and review the show. It means a lot. We need it. And we will get back to normal scheduling once everyone's not jet lagged and fucking weird. All right.
After the holiday.
Thanks. Bye.